Welcome to this week's episode of Tech Talk. I'm your host, Michael Amargon. And this week, we don't have any of our co-hosts, so it's just going to be me this week. But fret not. We do have an interesting set of topics to talk on today. For the starters, we're going to be actually talking about something called WPA3. Now, WPA3 is it sounds off the wall. It sounds like a bunch of tech jargon. And so to get to that, I want to give you a brief history into the world of wireless and wireless connections. More so because, well, when we actually deal with wireless, we are typically connecting to some service, some connection, some router somewhere. And so we have different levels of that. We have the ones that you have at home, we have public Wi-Fi hotspots, so on and so forth. So let's break it down and start at the ground level. You have an open wireless connection that anyone can connect to. This is known as an unsecure network. Pretty much anyone can get onto it. They can mess around with it if they want to. At present, this is seen as a very unsecure network for several different reasons. One, you're allowing anyone to connect to your network, and that means that they can use whatever they want on your network to connect to anything else. They can be downloading illegal information, pictures, videos, downloads, whatever it is. They can do it on your network, and your ISP or your internet service provider will essentially see it as you doing it because it is your network. You are allowing people to connect to it. So this is otherwise known as not a good situation to really have unless you trust everyone that's connecting to you. Now, you do have people that will open up their network and then you have to log in with a guest password or use your email address or something like that. Something that they can then grab your MAC address or the address that your device, your laptop, your smartphone, your computer, your whatever, even your tablets, or essentially whatever it is that you're connecting to their network, would then have that one MAC address. It's a very unique address. And so if they tie that device to your email address or to any personal information, they can then say, well, it wasn't us that was doing it, it was this person that was doing it. And then that's how they can kind of get out of that. Now, if you don't have that and you wanted to lock down your network, the original first step was something called WEP, which was one of the lesser forms of protection. Now, hey there, got your 6MS. Now, if you had WEP, this was not great. Like, this was one of the worst things you could probably have, but it was the best thing at the time. Then came WPA, or otherwise now known as WPA1, since that was the first iteration of it. So we then had something that was slightly better than WEP because that was easily crackable. WPA1 wasn't necessarily that much better, but it provided a little bit more performance and security. A few years after that, then WPA2 came out, and that allowed for a better encryption, more security. It was a little bit harder to crack. Up to now, it's still one of the most strongest things, but it still opens up a wide area of insecurities. So, for example, even on WPA2, if someone connects to you, they aren't necessarily secured because it's all on the network itself. Still, it's still brute forceable, and it's also very difficult to add stuff to it because that doesn't have a means to, say, type in a password. You would essentially have, for example, a Google Home or Alexa or some other device. You would necessarily need to...
I don't know how to help with that.
I'm pretty sure I didn't say the key phrase for that, but okay. You would essentially need to connect it to your smartphone using an app, and then allow it to connect and pull the wireless information from your smartphone so that it can connect. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that just now, Nally. that was a little weird. That was just a little weird. But yeah. So we have that happening. And then we have it where, yes, there's even an enterprise side of it, and it's still not quite what we want. So here comes this big bad thing. Well, actually, it's not so bad. It's called WPA3. It's about 14 years since the last update to wireless. And so it's been a long time coming, I guess you could say. Which, isn't a bad thing. It's definitely something that's been needed for a while. Especially when it's something pertaining to security and it's been there for over a decade. Yeah, you're going to want to start to taking a look at updating that. So, we have WPA3. And now that I've brought you a little bit more up to standard, or up to snuff, I guess you could say, it's essentially takes it to that step further. So whereas WPA2 would have been the way that your device could connect to the router and perform like a little handshake to say, hey, nice to meet you, I'm so-and-so. This would then take it up a step, okay, are you really this person? Like, can I see your credentials? Like, let me see your ID. That's essentially what WPA3 is taking into effect now. So what are these things on a whole? They're pretty much just hardware certifications. Essentially, and hopefully, if your device gets an update, technically speaking, your WPA2 device, so your router that you're currently using, could technically get WPA3. But not every device will likely get that. The reason for that is, one, not all devices are currently up to date by the manufacturers, which kind of sucks. But not only that, sometimes there are certain hardware things that will prevent it. So for example, to actually become WPA certified, there are certain things that it will require the hardware manufacturer, so your router provider, would need to actually have built in and updated to this particular thing before they could say, okay, great. Now, what are these things? And these things are actually set by an alliance of sort. Essentially, the Wi-Fi Alliance, or the industry group that defines these standards, hasn't explained in a whole lot of detail, like technical detail. We do have a broad explanation of what they're looking for. That would be privacy on public Wi-Fi networks. So the issue that we had with open Wi-Fi, where pretty much anyone and everyone is able to grab onto someone else. See, here's the thing with open Wi-Fi as well. Technically, everything you do on it is unsecure. So those WhatsApp, well, it's say you're sending a picture or you are sending an email. Technically, someone else on that unsecured network could pull that information from the network and get it on their own device. So unless it's an already encrypted service, then it becomes public domain, essentially. Not great. So with this, it's essentially encrypting each and every connection to the router. So even if you're on that open network, it would be a straight connection. And even if someone tries to get onto it, they will not be able to really much read what it is. So for example, and for an explanation of what encryption is, encryption pretty much jumbles up what it is that you're doing online. And so when you have this one-on-one connection and it's encrypted and someone tries to pull it, all they see is this jumbled mess and they're not able to really find out what it is that you're doing on there. Granted, sure. There are things like HTTPS websites or secured websites, but essentially people can still see which websites you're going to and view what it is if it doesn't only be on HTTPS. For example, if we wanted to go to google.com, it would be an HTTPS site, but we could try to force it to HTTP, which it wouldn't want to do, but it would still have to provide that information. So if you're doing a Google search or something, let's say porn, someone there will be able to see exactly what kind of porn you want to look at. It's kind of like that. So that's one element of it, which is good that they're actually working on, and good that WPA3 is going to fix this. So the next thing is protection against brute force attacks. So essentially, this is when someone is trying to gain access into the access point. So you have a password on it. They are then going to try and decipher what your password is. Now, this is what really made WPA1 really insecure, because they were really, really easy to brute force and essentially gain access to once that was done. So even with WPA2, the handshake or the connection to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, you're so-and-so, hey, nice to meet you, from from whatever device you're using to the router, it is easily crackable with WPA2 using a vulnerability called the crack attack, which was developed back in 2017, last year. So there is already a means to get past that, and that's not great. So you don't really want people getting onto your network that you don't want on your network, if you have a secure network, that is. So yeah, WPA3 fixes that, and technically WPA2 could be fixed if they do an upgrade on that as well. But again, they haven't updated it in 14 years, so chances are they're probably just going to switch to WPA3. So with this new handshake that WPA3 does, it's essentially asking for that ID card I mentioned earlier, where it will, quote unquote, deliver robust protections even when users choose passwords that fall short of typical complexity recommendations, aka having capital letters, lowercase, numbers, sometimes symbols, and at least 8 characters or more. Now, if you do that, or even if you just have your password set to I love mom, this is going to make it even harder to crack into that than before, even if you were using the same password before, just because of how the protocol is set, how the encryption is actually handling it. So it's going to protect against those brute force attacks. Now, that's not to say, given enough time, they won't be able to get it, but it will take much, much, much longer to actually have this done. And here's the thing. The guy who created the crack attack for WPA2 back in 2017, he's actually excited about WPA3 because of how difficult it is to get into. That's something to keep in mind. Hey, Mr. Wan, glad you can join us this time. Now, the next thing about WPA3, remember how I was talking about, having to have those smartphone applications to connect things like your Alexa, your Siri, your HomePod, your Google Home. I'm going to make sure that's not going to pick up on my thing. Exactly, Omega. It's food for thought. So, instead of having to require an app just to connect your smart device to your wireless network, WPA3 does something interesting. And it's bringing wireless, and this seems very weird when you really think about it, but it's bringing the wireless industry to current standards. It kind of feels like, what, wireless? This is new. This is what we use. Like, this is something that's already modern. Like, what are you talking about? No, this is it's actually something that, it's needed. And So things like that, things like smart outlets, light bulbs, essentially, it has a feature that promises to quote unquote simplify the process of configuring security for devices that have a limited or no display interface. Now, we're not exactly sure how this is going to work, not exactly, but it could be a lot like today's Wi-Fi protected setup feature, which involves just simply pressing a button from the router. So if you have a router and it has a little like swirly set of arrows and you press that, there are some devices that can automatically connect if you press the button on those devices as well, and it would automatically pair your router to that device, and presto. Now, that's one of the hardware things about it. So if your device doesn't have it, that might be a problem. Or it could be, something that you enable from said app. So you may still need to use said app. Juan, I'm not sure what you mean by WPS. Explain that one for me. And Omega, yeah, it's... Well, actually, Wi-Fi printers aren't that bad if you do it right. The fact that some Wi-Fi printers create their own Wi-Fi network that shows up, that's confusing. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Unless, like, the only time that I think that should actually be there is when you're trying to troubleshoot it. And chances are most times you shouldn't be having to troubleshoot your wireless printer. But getting back to WPA3 and that little button, the current setup, which is the Wi-Fi protected setup, has its own security problems. So if this can take over that, chances are it'll wipe that clear and we can move on and be a lot more secure in that aspect as well. The next thing is higher security for government, defense, and industrial applications. Now, this isn't one that we, the regular consumers, should be really interested in unless we're taking a look at the security of these organizations or governments or stuff like that. Oh, that's what you meant. Yes, WSP, Wi-Fi protected setup. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was talking about. So, the Wi-Fi Alliance also announced, that WPA3 will introduce a 192-bit security suite aligned for the Commercial National Security Algorithm, or the CSNA, from the Committee on National Security Systems, and it's intended mainly for those government, defense, and industrial applications. Again, this is more so for things like U.S. national security, governments, stuff like that. Hey, Back Horizon 8837, welcome. Hey, I see Pandora, welcome back. How are you? Wait. No, I don't think... Actually, I think you're new, I see. How are you doing? Now, as the question as to when this will actually come into play, well, Qualcomm is already making chips for it. And as you know, Qualcomm is the Wi-Fi chip provider for a lot of devices that are coming out on the market, especially smartphones and tablets. So if they're already building out for that, then, the chances are your next device is probably going to have it built in. Thanks for the follow, Back Horizon. Now, that being said, it'll take a while for them to be integrated into new devices. So, yeah, say like the later on 2018, maybe 2019. Thank you, Icy Pandora. I like my hair too. But yeah, so you'll likely see these things starting in late 2018. And sadly, the Wi-Fi Alliance hasn't really announced anything. Thank you for the follow, IC Pandora. Anything about existing devices receiving it. But the thing is, not a whole lot of people are expecting that many devices will receive software and firmware updates to support it. Though theoretically they can just create the software and update it, and add those features into existing routers, like I mentioned earlier, but they then again have to go through the trouble of applying for and receiving the certification for their existing hardware before even rolling it out. And more than likely, a lot of manufacturers will just spend that time on new devices for the next year. Yes, back Horizon, I do play games, and I do play them, and I stream them from time to time. I think it was just earlier this week. Well, it was either earlier this week or late last week. I was playing Dying Light with some of my co-hosts. We did have someone that wanted to join, but they joined really, really late, and so we ended up having to end the session without them actually joining. Hey, Ashley, I'm glad you could join us. So, even when you get your WPA3 enabled router, though, you still need to have WPA3 compatible client devices, and essentially your laptop, your smartphone, your smart TV, your home assistant, all of those will need to have to be WPA3 consistent. Otherwise, it'll be running on WPA2, which is, again, not something that you want to do. But once all of your devices do, then you can just turn off WPA2 and switch directly just to WPA3 and improve your security. Much the same way that you could disable WPA or WEP and just connect to WPA2. Omega, a software available update is not available just yet. This is something that they just recently announced. So I wouldn't really expect any updates until maybe late 2018, roughly around the same time we'd be getting the hardware devices. Back Horizon, I've had that issue on Mixer before where the stream is skipping. I'm not sure what's causing it. If you would like, I do also stream on YouTube at youtube.com/morecookies, MORCOOKIES. You can watch it there. I hear that plays it just fine. Also, it's on Twitch at the exact same thing, twitch.com. Twitch.tv/morecookies. So you can try watching it on there. I know it's not ideal moving you from Mixer, but I do need to talk to them and try to figure out what's happening with that. So once we get this new, more secure wireless rolling out, this would be great. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, Juan. Thank you, Omega. WPS is not really secure. Like, you can he's saying that you can hack into Wi-Fi with WPS enabled with the small free apps. Oh, I think he meant Wi-Fi with WPS enabled with small free apps on Android Google Play Store. So yeah, there is that. So the next thing that I wanted to talk on is actually something that we haven't really heard about all that much for a few years now, and that thing is Firefox. Yeah, like the internet has mainly gone either using Safari, Chrome, or Microsoft Edge. Yeah, that's kind of there. But Firefox used to be the king of the browser industry. It blew away Internet Explorer. It blew away Chrome. It blew away Safari. It was the de facto go-to internet browser. Oh, Opera as well. Opera was definitely king for a while, especially with all of its features. But then a shift happened, and Firefox started to get really bloated. It started to get really sluggish. It used up way too much memory back then. And so people started to move over to Chrome, which was seen as the new lightweight version of Internet Exploring. And sure enough, over the past few months, Firefox has been slowly but surely making these incremental but very important updates to your internet browsing experience. And its latest one, I think, highlights that even more. So, for example, It has several different features. Something from faster tab switching using something, well, I'll break it down a little bit further. For starters, Firefox 61, and currently right now, yes, 62 is in beta. I got the update notification for that today. But 61, which is the current public version of Firefox, gives developers more freedom when creating extensions as well. Now, it's possible for extensions to hide tabs and manage how the browser behaves when tabs are open and closed. So this is something very similar to what happens in Chrome. If you have the extension, so this is not built in, this is actually requiring an extension called the Great Suspender, which will, after a while, turn off whatever tab it is. It doesn't hide the tab, it actually turns off the tab, and you have to refresh the page to essentially get back to that page. But you won't lose the page if you wanted to like keep it up in your tab windows. So, if you want to see this in action, you can check out an extension for Firefox called Hide Tabs, and yeah, it's an extension for there as well, but Firefox is now enabling it to happen. And it's handy if you're using a video streaming site to play music in the background, because instead of actually doing what Great Suspender does, this quite literally just makes the tab disappear. So it's not going to show up, you can still listen to whatever it is, and then if you want to, open the use the extension, make it show up again, close it out, or use it to hide Netflix when your boss is around. I'm not suggesting that, but so the real thing that changed everything was something called Firefox Quantum. And this is what they really wanted to show off to show off all the enhancements that they'd done to make things get better. So it had better security and new features. There were features such as screenshots, which Mozilla, the parent company of Firefox, trialed in its test pilot under the name of PageShot. There was new security features under the hood, including improved sandboxing. I am not suggesting that, Ashley. I am not. But I mean, you could if you wanted to, but I'm not suggesting watching Netflix. A sandboxing essentially allows you to keep things contained. Think of an actual sandbox. It's a wall with sand inside of it. Typically speaking, you don't throw the sand outside. Everything stays inside the box, and that's how it's supposed to be. You build up what you want inside the box, you break it down. It doesn't leave the box. So that's what sandboxing typically is. And so Firefox with Quantum improved upon that, and they even improved upon the user interface, so it's now simpler to use, and all the security information appears in one place. Not only that, but one of its most impressive features was all the extensions that it had. Like, quite literally, like, you could go ham on it. And a lot of these have had major overhauls to make them run faster for Quantum. And rather than having free reign to do whatever they like, and use up a whole bunch of your memory, authors now, or developers essentially, now have a more tightly controlled set of knobs to turn via a newly implemented developer API. Essentially what allows them to connect and use Firefox for what they actually make with their stuff. So essentially, this means that all of your old extensions may no longer be working because they now may be legacy unless they've been updated to work. Now, there was the whole thing about speed as well, and that's part of it. They improved with all of this. They improved on speed, switching tabs, and its memory hogging, I guess you could say. So even with the version that is right before it, it was twice as fast as the version that came out just before. So at that point, they were making statements saying that the point where they were was as fast or faster than Chrome, and compared to a year ago, that's a huge leap in performance. Back then in late 2017. So now we have 61 coming out, and it's bringing up some interesting things, much like tab warming, like I mentioned, faster tab switching, more flexible search options, so you can not just have to search on Bing or Google, you quite literally search on a bunch of other search platforms as well. Now, it can also warm up tabs, and I've mentioned this a little bit with the tab warming thing, by preemptively loading them when you hover over them. So for example, let's say you wanted to open up your Gmail inside of another tab, you switch back to a tab and you're waiting for that, and so that kind of shuts down a little bit to save on the memory. And so when you hover your mouse over it and you're ready to click, it'll start to load everything back up. So by the time you've clicked over, everything's going to be updated and you don't really have to wait for it anymore. So it's really good if you're the kind of person that opens up a dozen types of tabs and just like kind of leaves them there for a little bit. And they also added something else called retained display lists, which essentially just speeds up page loading by remembering elements like backgrounds, text, and borders. So it doesn't have to be completely loaded from scratch every time you revisit a page. So even if you close out a page, come back, it'll say, okay, well, these are all the information from before. Let's load them up. Bada bing, bada boom. You're here much faster than you were the first time. And you can add custom search engines now as well. So even if one is missing, you can still add them in with one click. So all you need to go is go to the appropriate site, click in the page actions button in the search bar and click add search engine. One, I'll be quite honest, that's kind of me too at times. Especially when I have like a bunch of anime that I want to watch or a bunch of news articles that I want to read. I will sometimes just like throw them open to say, I'm going to watch these today. And I end up not watching all of them. Or these are all the articles that I'm going to read. And I end up reading like 6 of 24 of them. And I'm like closing them down as I slowly go through them. Ideally, I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want to have so many things open, but I still do. And it's a little, how should I put it? Secret of mine, I guess you could say. Like, it's a shameful secret. Like, I do not like being this way, but I still am. So it's kind of, yeah, I do that. But I think one of the most important things that no other browser that comes to mind is actually built in. There's a company, or a website I should say, called how should I put it? If you go to a website like Have You Been Pwned, or somewhere that essentially tells you if your email and password combination has been compromised. Let's say you went on a website and they got hacked and then your information got leaked. Essentially this website, or there's a few of them actually, if you type in your email address, it will say, oh, well, yeah, we noticed that you were included in this breach on this date or from this website. It'll tell you if it's like made public or not, and so on and so forth. It's beneficial to have. There are tools that will sometimes, if it's big enough, say, you won't want to change your password, especially if they're a password manager. They'll probably give you a little bit of a warning or a heads up. What Firefox has done is they've actually integrated with that website, which typically gets some of this information firsthand. And so as soon as that's updated, essentially Firefox is also going to be like, hey, we noticed you use this email address. This actually just got recently breached. You may want to check your password on this particular website and update it. Which I think is awesome. Awesome. Essentially, so from looking at this image here, when you open it up, it's opening up as Firefox Monitor. And it's its own little website, essentially. It's something local. And so says, protect yourself from hackers, start here. The first step to keeping your online account safe is knowing what you're up against. Find out if your accounts have been compromised, you enter your email address, and click search. Your email, and then in small text, it says, your email address will not be stored. Find out more on our privacy policy. But right on the right-hand side of it, they say signups for alerts. So get an alert if your account information is compromised. So I think that is where they will be able to say you can put in your stuff and we'll give you notification. Typically how that database gets its information is that they're always looking for breaches. More so not actually them breaching, but to find out if anyone is like in the dark web or anywhere like that saying, hey, well, we just hacked this website. Here's a bunch of email addresses and possible passwords, or here's the email addresses and the hashed passwords, hash being essentially a form of encryption so that your passwords aren't seen in plain text, which is what some websites do, which is really, really bad. So if you're a website developer, please don't ever leave your stuff in plain text. Actually salt them, hash them, make sure that they are protected. Because you don't want people just getting everyone's information. That's just bad business. So that's essentially what's happening there. And essentially, Mozilla, which is Firefox again, and Cloudflare have kind of worked into this as well. So, sorry, one moment. So the company that they're really working with is Have I Been Pwned, which is the same website I talked about, or HIBP. And Firefox isn't the only one that's working with them. It's also 1Password, which is a password manager extension. They are also working with Have I Been Pwned. Now, essentially, Have I Been Pwned is a free online tool that, was built by a security expert. And it lets you enter your email, like I said, and it will do what I said. So the fact that you have companies and extensions and whatnot that now actually tying into this database is great. And I'm actually hoping that Have I Been Pwned does this more with other password managers, or that other password managers feel free to reach out to Have I Been Pwned to make sure that their customers stay, well, secure. I think that's the biggest picture right there. Hey, Dope 2003, welcome to the stream. Now, 1Password has a service called Watchtower now, which will do pretty much the same thing. It'll tell you whether it's been hacked with the same help, and give you a breach report, which will then give fix suggestions, which will be a new password more than likely. Hey, Eclipse viewer, welcome to the stream. So I think now that Firefox has that, we may start finding that in Chrome and Opera, to be quite honest. Safari may also get that as well. Eclipse, feel free to ask questions. That's what this entire stream is about. That's why I don't generally do these recorded and just upload them on YouTube or anything like that. They're actually part of, engagement, having people talk, and actually having a discussion about things. So, shoot. Now, once that's done, and this will actually also tell you how many breaches your email address has been on as well. So for example, if a bunch of different places have been breached with your email address, it'll let you know, and so you can go to each one of those sites and fix them. ScottyBot. Now, ScottyBot, I actually don't use ScottyBot. But I do know that it's a pretty good Mixer.com bot. Let me see right now. You pretty much will need a computer though. Like, I can tell you that right now, at least for certain things on it. especially if you want to do the optional step 2. Right. That's where making, well, the GUI or the program would become a lot easier for you to actually control the bot. The best suggestion I can say to you, if you're having problems, try their Discord channel. They do have, well, it's either Discord or subreddit. I would go there and ask for help with that. Honestly, I could give you links for those. Let me post them for inside the chat. So that's their Discord. Crap. And Mixer wants to be a little pain. Okay, so that is their Discord. And this is their subreddit. So you can try it there, and hopefully it works out for you. I'm really hoping it does. I know having no bots inside your channel is not the best. So good luck with that. Now, the next update that I wanted to talk about is Google Maps. This is something that we kind of touched on in a few episodes ago, back when we were talking about the Google Developer Conference, or Google I/O. I think it will, Eclipse. I think it will help. They should have support inside the Discord. They should have a support channel there as well. Thanks for following. They should have a support channel inside there, so just jump inside there, let them know what you've done so far and what's the issue, like that is not working with your commands, and they'll be able to help you figure it out. You may need to disconnect it and then reconnect it, but they'll be able to help much better, especially since they actually work with that bot. Now, Google Maps was talking about pretty much making a Yelp or TripAdvisor essentially competitor. So somewhere that they already do reviews and ratings and pictures and times and stuff like that. So what's next? It's actually giving suggestions on where to go to eat or where to go to visit stuff. So for example, if I go on my smartphone, hello there, Cytrinique, and not a problem, Eclipse. Glad I could help you, at least somewhat guide you to where you need to really go. And I hope to see you in follow-up episodes. Thank you. I appreciate that. So if we wanted to go into the maps, we would just open up the maps up on here. And you would see here that they've actually changed up some of the things. So we have on here, I'm going to show it up on the side. Let's see if I can do that. So there we go. This is essentially what I have on my screen. It has an option for me to pick restaurants, bars, attractions, or more. And then it gives suggestions like romantic restaurants, group-friendly dining, late-night dining, outdoor dining. It has other ones too. Let me check those out. Cheap spots for groups, upscale dinners, food and cocktails, and cheap drinks. Now, if I wanted to click on more, it then gives me options for things like food and drink, restaurants, bars, coffee, delivery, things to do. So attractions, parks, gyms, art, attractions, nightlife, live music, movies, museums, libraries. If I wanted to go even further, then there's like things like shopping, groceries, beauty supplies, car dealers, so on and so forth. Like the list is quite exhaustive. So how does that really benefit me though? Like, sure, that's information that I could use to say, like, if I had a date coming up. So, you know, date, I want it to be a romantic restaurant, so I click on there, and then it gives me some restaurants to choose from. But I've never been to these places. I'm just checking out, like, okay, so this place is a 3.9 star. It's a certain distance away and it closes at 10 p.m. So what they've done is the next thing that's really, really nice. They've actually given these places individual ratings. Actually, you're saying that you use Google Maps for everything. Apple Maps has ended me up in the back of nowhere quite a few times. You know, that's actually something that I've joked about on with my co-host, because she is a Apple sheep. She admits it though. Like, she knows she has a problem with Apple. But Apple has been known to Apple Maps has been known to have problems from its inception. And granted, over the years, it's gotten much better than it originally was when it first started. But it's still quirky. And, you know, not everything's on it, for example. Quite literally, you have to be on Yelp for it to even show up as a place of business. And for the Bahamas, which is where I currently am, you know, it's not all places are on Yelp. Most places aren't, actually. So that's kind of sad. So, if I wanted to, let's say, have a dinner somewhere, it gives me the options. It gives me several options. So on this screen, I don't really have I don't have much. I can book a room here since it's also a hotel, and I can check for availability because it's a hotel. They're currently saying that restaurants will allow bookings soon. And yeah, this is also going along with Google Duplex, which they've currently made public, which we talked about in the last episode, and, you know, people calling people and so on and so forth. And, you know, that becoming a thing. But here, I'm guessing because it's a restaurant, it's not giving me a suggestion, even though it's a hotel, even though it's a restaurant as well. So if I go to an actual restaurant, I then get a match percentage. And if I click on that, it's actually basing that information off of a lot of different key factors. One, the kinds of foods that I eat and the places that I typically go to. So it's using my location. It's checking for places that I've typically checked in at. It's checking for places that I've maybe given reviews for or sent in pictures for. So it's pretty much making this personalized recommendations for me. And, you know, it's kind of funny because I actually do not like Social House Sushi all that much. I don't mind their grill, but their sushi kind of sucks. So I typically don't go there. So the fact that it's giving me a 93, I can deal with that. Next up is one place I have never been before, but I've passed it quite frequently. Because it's right on the way as you're heading downtown. Though I have been curious about trying that before, and I've tried it once doing delivery. How they got the 8%, I'm not 100% sure. But I will admit, the sushi from there was not bad. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't bad. So I could see where they would give me an 80% based on my actual findings. So Ashley's saying, for those of us living in Nassau, which is the capital of the Bahamas, well, New Providence is the capital, Nassau is a city in New Providence, something like this may not always be reliable, considering public pages don't often update certain key information, like open and close times and numbers. And see, that's the beauty of Google right there, Ashley. Because anyone and everyone can make a suggestion to edit information and actually update it. I've done this personally. I've added businesses, a lot of businesses, to the Google Maps. I've added pictures. I've added suggestions like locations, phone numbers, times, websites, to the effect that I quite literally, I'm quite literally a level 7 local guide for Google Maps. So the fact that I'm even there says, you know, people can do a lot with making sure that these things are up to date. Whereas Apple Maps, yeah, you're kind of stuck. You can't update anything. One, they want to know what we eat. Two, knowing when we go offline is not good enough. Essentially, what this is, you can always turn these kinds of things off by turning off location history and location settings on your mobile device. but it will cause some issues because, you won't have all the functionalities of things. Not only that, you can just not use Google Maps, and so it won't really know where you're looking for, what kinds of places you're looking for, and that kind of thing. And if you're not leaving any reviews or anything like that, then it has even less information to pretty much use. But the thing about Google is, if you're searching for places to go and eat, it may pick up on that. So that's another thing. You may want to browse incognito if you're looking up for places to go and eat, if you don't want to match. But in my case, I don't mind because I'm a foodie, so I like to actually try new places. So if we take it to the next place, which is Sakura Sushi, which is not too far from me, it's actually 5% up higher. And the thing is, I actually like this place. I've been to it quite often, and the sushi there is actually pretty good. So I'm kind of surprised it's not more like a 90 or a 95. But maybe it's because I don't search for them often enough, because I already know what I want from there. So it can only really go based off of, well, me being there. Actually, I'm not sure if I've left a review for this place. I think I might have. I'm not sure. But we then have a place over Paradise Island called Nobu, which is a gourmet sushi place that I've actually never been to before. And it's more of a Japanese restaurant than necessarily sushi, but this is ranked higher. So maybe my next sushi place might be here. But the place that I've been to the most, and that I've tried the most sushi from, and also left a review for and a lot of pictures for, is Seafront Sushi, which I'm not really surprised that it's giving me 100% match rate. So yeah, it even says, like, I visited there 6 days ago when I took these screenshots, which necessarily wasn't today, but it was this week, so I was there recently. So information like this is great to have, because then it gives you an idea of where all you want to be going to. So here's another example, and I'm going to go past this. I clicked onto Social House's information to find out exactly why and how they give these things. So not only does it give me the match information, it also gives me information about why. So the reason why they even matched me this high with them is because it's similar to Seafront Sushi and Twisted Lime, places I've both been to from time to time. Twisted Lime more for drinks because their food is pretty crap. It also says that I can actually take steps to improve my matches by rating a few places and editing my food and drink preferences. So I can actually do that, and actually I will do that right now on stream just to see what happens. So I am going to go to romantic restaurants, and Blue Sail Bar and Grill comes up, which is actually my my uncle-in-law's restaurant, which kind of surprisingly I have a question mark to. It doesn't actually have a match for me, even though I've been there once before. I visited 8 months ago, which was, granted, not for the best reasons, but it was still there. So I click it, and because this is a question mark, it says I can unlock these matches if I rate a few more places and edit preferences. So I wanted to edit my preferences anyway. So it then takes me to this: food and drink preferences. Suggestions: hamburgers, Italian, Japanese, pizza, seafood, sushi, family friendly, notable coffee were all ups. Notable wines, live performances, notable desserts, and organic foods are down for whatever reason. And I can add interested or not interested to these kinds of things. I click add, then a bunch of stuff from the popular section comes up. Hey there, Mad Swag. Welcome to the stream. And everything from American food to breakfast to Cajun to French to hot dogs to Jamaican food to Korean barbecue comes up. And they even have other ones like Afghan, African, Argentinian, beef rice bowls, Brazilian, crab, dim sum, gyros, great views, Indian curry, juice bars, a lot of other options come up to say that I'm interested in these things or I'm not, and these would enhance or decrease my performance, well, my match rating with these places, which I think is awesome. So essentially, you don't really have to use Yelp anymore, for starters. If you're in places that actually do use Yelp, I don't have to look at TripAdvisor reviews that much anymore, because while Google is almost the de facto place for people to go and look up stuff, and a lot of people leave reviews on Google nowadays compared to just Yelp or TripAdvisor. I mean, granted, you can always like go there and find better, well, sometimes more information about a place, I should say, and sometimes even do bookings that Google doesn't. So it's getting better as time goes on. And so I think that's the key and important part of it right there. So I've been talking for roughly an hour now, and I'm pretty sure you guys are probably bored of my voice. Just joking, I know. I'm not self-depreciating here. But I would like to thank everyone that has actually come on the stream today. I would like to thank everyone for being a part of the conversation. So again, Backdoor Horizon, Icy Pandora, Eclipse Viewer, thank you for following. It's great to see some return viewers as well, like Juan and Omega, and even a new face, even though I have a feeling you've been watching before, Ashley. So thank you everyone for actually being a part of this, and we will have an episode coming up shortly. It's already been recorded. It's an interview with a company that's in Grand Bahama now. It's a company that believes that Grand Bahama is going to become a silicon island. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what the current government wants, as a Grand Bahama become a tech hub for the Caribbean and West Indies. So keep an eye on that. There's actually quite some surprising comments that he's making, both about what's happening there, the government, and how we can actually make this tech hub thing happen. I'll see you guys on the next episode. This is Michael Amargan. Take care.